back to another edition of the Panel B podcast. Steve Buchanan, Julian Edlow, wearing a nice sweatshirt this week. I like this one. This one's
look
actually
like
not
a
bad.
curtain to you?
No, this one, fashionable. I would say it looks fashionable. Not as well as I've dressed today. I dressed up today for the occasion. Panel B podcast. Have to look good. Thank you very much. I think I got this shirt at Savers. No, I'm just kidding. But it is a good place to get to if you need like cheap clothes, though. Hand-me-downs.
I already said where I get my clothes.
That's right. We can't talk about that. Lots to talk about on the show here. Super Bowl is just a few days away, if you can believe that. DraftKings Sportsbook, I'm sure, is buzzing with all of the bets that you can put. Just a massive amounts of bets that you can place on the Super Bowl here. Literally anything that you can think of.
It's pretty crazy.
They probably have something you can bet on here. So we'll dive into a lot of that. We'll dive into some of the DFS implications of this week as well. And we'll talk a little baseball as well. Baseball is coming around. Some breaking news that happened this morning with Chris Bryant losing his grievance against the Cubs about his service time, which now makes him a more attractive trade commodity if a team does decide they want to get his services for the next 2 years now, not one. We'll get into that in just a little bit here. But we've been kind of combing through the DraftKings Sportsbook, all the different bets that we can take. We've landed on a few that we like on both sides here. So why don't we just get right into that? Talk about betting on the game here. Before we get into that, since the last show, the lines have remained relatively the same.
Yeah.
Chiefs are still 1.5 favorites. The over-under has gone up by a half point. I think since we last talked on the show last week, it was at 54. It's now at 54.5. Any feelings one way or the other since anything changed?
I think the total is going to just keep slowly going that way. Maybe get to 55, 55.5, and then a small buyback at the end and reclose at 54, 54.5 or whatever, something along those lines. But like we said last week, I think we saw the big movement in the total. It opened 51, 52 different places and shot up 2 to 3 points. And I think that's just, it's in the right neighborhood now. I do think, I've been saying if you like the Niners to wait, and I still feel that way, but I think when do casual bettors usually place bets on games? Day of, a couple hours before, an hour before. So I think this is going to be like last year where we saw the Patriots go from like minus 130 to minus 180 or whatever on game day. So I could see that happening with the Chiefs this year. So if you like San Francisco, I would wait till the best price you see on Sunday. If you like Kansas City, I would get it in as soon as you can. So we're 4 days away from the actual Super Bowl here. Is there a point where you would say, okay, now would be the time? Because we talked about, day of is probably the time to do so here. Is there a number right now on the 49ers, because that's what you were talking about there, where you would say you should probably grab that now, if it gets to a certain point? Maybe. See, I don't think, if you want the 49ers, wouldn't it be great to get them +3? I know that some people have gotten +2s out there, but that opportunity isn't going to present itself. So the only thing that I could see happening is if this ever gets to 2.5, you buy the half point and lay some extra juice and give yourself 3, because I think we're all expecting a pretty competitive game here, and being able to push on that field goal would be a big deal. Or getting something like +125 on a Niners money line feels like a really good bet. So, and obviously we're at +108 right now on DK Sportsbook. So it's going to take time. I don't think there's going to be any, on Friday or Saturday be like, oh my God, look at this number, I have to take it. I think we're in for some movement on Sunday.
Right now, the 49ers, as you mentioned, on the money line, +108. The Chiefs, who were favored here at -122. Again, haven't seen much movement on that at all. So if you want to get more in depth into that, we talked about that last week on the podcast. You can go into the archives. You can take a listen to that. We're going to be focusing more on all the props and things that you can do, because like we said, there's so many ways that you can bet on this game here. And before the show, you and I were talking about some of the quarterback props that you can talk about. There's a lot of bees. They're running wires or something on a different floor. I don't know if the microphones are picking up.
Yeah, I don't know if people can hear it or not, but it's pretty noisy in here.
It's horrific. We're trying to do a damn show. Shut up, stop running your wires, and let's talk about the Super Bowl props. And we're going to talk about the Super Bowl props, specifically quarterbacks. One that I pointed out to you, and you seemed you were pretty intrigued.
I was intrigued. That was a good find. I didn't see that in my last glance over of the bets on here.
So they have a number of quarterback props that you can do, and they have passing yards for the first quarter. So if you take a look at that, right now what that is at, if I can just get it, here we go. Jimmy Garoppolo's at 53.5, minus 112 on the over-under. Patrick Mahomes, over-under 74.5. Now, I was saying to you, I like the under on this one, but I like the over on his passing yards overall. And the thought process that I had here is that I think the 49ers are going to come out wanting to run the ball. So
I agree.
In doing so, and your analysis, by the way, of them getting the ball to begin with, which,
hope so.
Again, in the archives, you can go back to that. I will say, Julian brings a lot of trash to the show. That was probably some of the best analysis you've had since this show's inception.
I have a confession.
It wasn't even yours.
No, I did all the research.
Okay.
I messed up one piece of the research. The 49ers didn't take the ball both times. The other team deferred once.
I mean, that's a pretty big piece of the puzzle.
But we have seen them take the ball. The other thing that I found when diving deeper into the research that made me feel a little better about myself, or better about the bet, is that the 49ers defense has forced 3 and outs to start the games. I still think the 49ers are getting the ball.
Okay.
And I think even if the offense maybe stalls, nerves or whatever, they can still get a 3 and out on Kansas City and still score first and win the first quarter.
Mm-hmm.
I would prefer it to be by getting the ball, stuffing it down Kansas City's throat, and going up 7-0 on a 7-8 minute drive. That's obviously ideal. I still feel comfortable with it. Here's what we know. We know for sure Kansas City defers. They like Mahomes getting the ball to start the second half, and why wouldn't you? Even with Andy Reid and these slow starts and not having his team ready, he's not. I don't think he's going to change that, and I think he's still not going to be ready for this game. And I think San Francisco's better coached, and they have a better game plan to start the game. So I still like, and Kansas City's still been starting the way they've been starting. So no matter what here, 2 of my bets, and I have all of them out on Twitter right now, and I'll be adding to them this weekend.
Of course.
Niners first quarter money line, Niners to score first.
I feel like a very disappointed father.
I made one little error, but I also did deeper research that shows that the defense has been starting well, which is good because Kansas City hasn't been starting well. I actually should look up Kansas City drives because I think they've been going 3 and out to start some of these games, or getting 1 first down and then getting off the field. They've obviously had bad starts, but I'm curious how long those drives have lasted.
It feels like you brought home your report card, and I found out you changed your F to a B. That's how disappointed I feel in you right now.
That's a reach.
Not really.
All
Anyways.
Right. So those are my favorite first quarter bets, but let's look at these QB ones again.
Okay.
Well, actually, let me just respond to your Jimmy G one first as well, because I think...
I didn't even finish explaining.
Oh, you didn't? Okay.
No.
Go
so
ahead.
The mentality is that the 49ers get the ball. That's where the thing went off the rails because then you admitted you were actually fraudulent in your reason why you liked it.
Right.
49ers get out the ball. They want to keep the Chiefs off the field as much as possible, so they start by running the ball. 53.5 feels like a lot of passing yards for a team that, in a game that will be starting neutral, no score in this one. 49ers get the ball first. They want to run the ball. The Chiefs' run defense has been very, very poor all throughout the year. Taking the under 53.5, which is at minus 112. I like that one a lot.
I like it. Getting 54 yards in the first quarter for Jimmy G is a good amount. Now, this will take a lot of research, but you could go back and check how many times he's done this in game. It would take going into game logs.
Right. And the other mentality, too, is, which I think is interesting. If you take that total, okay, let's say he averages that for the entire game. He's at 214.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably been about where he's been at recently, especially. I still like the over on his total overall because once a game progresses, so now we're talking about the later quarters, I like the 49ers playing from behind because I like the Chiefs to win this game, so I think they're going to win this game. I don't think they're going to have a lot of problem against that 49ers defense, so I like his total for the passing yards to go over overall. But I am 100% locking in the under on his first quarter prop.
So my favorite one is probably the first quarter because I just how and I'm probably going too heavy on this, but I keep going with the game script that I think the Niners are going to, control this game early, and then Kansas City will figure it out. And so that means that I like that Jimmy G under. What I do like is that you're probably giving yourself a window to either win both or get close to a push if you go 1-1 there and split. So it feels pretty safe. It would be pretty unfortunate if he went over that first quarter total and then didn't get it for the game.
Right.
And then you're sitting there 0-2 like, well, that sucks.
That was awful.
But I think I like I do like your thinking there. I think that there's a, what do you give yourself? Like a 30% chance to go 2-0 with a 70% chance of just splitting there or whatever. And that's always, or not, you have to leave error, I guess, for the loss. But, you're giving yourself high odds of either making no money, losing very little money, or making some decent money. So
that brings me now to the passing yards in the first half.
Mm-hmm.
So Garoppolo's at 120.5, minus 106 for the over. Under is 118. Mahomes 149.5, 112 on the over, 112 on the under here. This is where I think I actually might like the over again, is because once the Chiefs get the ball, I really think the Chiefs are not going to have a lot of issues scoring in this game. I feel like that the amount of weapons that they have,
I think they are to start, but
okay, and that's fair because they have gotten off to that slow start, but the second quarter has been kind of where they all come together here.
One of my other bets that I tweeted out, I have already placed a bet on Kansas City second quarter.
Right. So if they get out to that early lead, I feel like Jimmy in the second quarter is going to have to be a lot busier than he was in the first. So I do like the passing yards in the first half.
So the only thing with these, and I like how you're playing out the game, and I'm doing the same. Usually I pick a side on the Super Bowl and roll with it, and now we're playing out this whole game script of how we think the entire game is going to go. If it doesn't go to script and all your bets line up with how you think this game is going to go, you can get hosed, and we don't want to get hosed. But I think we have similar scripts. I think you're a little bit more confident in Kansas City than I am, but I'm starting to kind of like Kansas City in the end here. I'm just not coming off the 49ers having the better start to the game, which is why I don't think I'm going to bet on a team to win the game in this Super Bowl. I think I'm going to do that live at some point in time when an opportunity I like presents itself. But I do want to point out, because I think a lot of people bet first quarters, first halves, and then live bet and don't realize that going into the game, you can already bet the second quarter, the fourth quarter, whatever you want. So because I'm digging myself into this game script, I have already bet the Chiefs to win the second quarter.
Okay.
Which, why wait? Maybe you can. The only reason to wait maybe is because if it does play out like we think, let's say it's 7-0 San Francisco after a quarter, or 10-7 San Francisco after a quarter, maybe you can get better odds on Kansas City to wind up winning at halftime or something. But again, this is just a straight second quarter bet. So even if they're down 10-0, I'm not saying they're going to be winning at halftime. I'm saying they're just going to be losing by less than 10.
Okay, I think that's fair. The other thing that I like, too, is that they have, you can bet on the pass attempts, passer rating, which, get out of my face, I'm not going to touch that.
No, what are you going to crunch the numbers on that?
Right.
Well, if Jimmy G goes 22 for 25 with...
carry the 3, and then, anyways. Pass completions, completion percentage, et cetera, et cetera. The one that really stood out to me was pass attempts. 29.5 for Garoppolo.
I thought you said you were a completion percentage guy.
No. We're getting there. We're getting there.
All right.
The pass attempts, 29.5 for Jimmy Garoppolo. That just seems way too high. Even in a game where I expect them to be throwing a lot more than they did against the Packers, which the bar is very high to pass.
No.
But 29.5 for Jimmy Garoppolo for a team that has shown week in and week out, especially over the past 3-4 weeks, they want to run the ball. I like the Chiefs to win this game. I think the 49ers are going to be playing from behind, but 29.5, that's a lot, man. That feels like a lot.
Yeah, so this is one of the other bets I tweeted out that I've already taken. I took the under 29.5 on Jimmy G. I just thrown 30 times. They, again, to get there, it feels like they would have to go down 10-0 or 14-0, and we keep saying we don't feel like that's going to be the case. So this is, again, kind of piling on more to the game script that we like. But yeah, that's a lot of passes. The 49ers are just so confident in their run game, it feels like, that I just don't see them getting to that. But another thing, like if you were imagining without looking at this line, like how far apart do you think Mahomes and Garoppolo's attempts would be? And, Mahomes is set at 35.5. So you would think that it would be, more like a 10-attempt differential between the two, and it's not. So I think that kind of saying that Garoppolo is this close to Mahomes in terms of how much they're going to be throwing the ball, I don't know if I like that.
Completion percentage, which is one that you were asking me about here.
Yes.
So this one is interesting because what this is set as Jimmy Garoppolo over under 64.5, Patrick Mahomes 67.5. The funny thing about this is that we don't care about how many attempts he's taken. We just want him to hit the over on this completion percentage. So if he has a game where he only has to throw 8 times like he did last time, sure, he only threw for 8 times, but it was a 75% completion rate. That hits the over.
Yep.
One thing about Garoppolo, when he has thrown the ball this season, he's been pretty damn accurate. Overall in the year, playoffs included, 68.8%. So you're getting already about a 4% under on his season average.
How many, like, in his last 5 games?
So you look at his last 5 games, 75, 57, which is not that great, 81, 59, 64. So he's been a little hit or miss, but I'm looking at a team where they do have a good secondary, but this is going to be he's going to have to be throwing out of necessity to this one. And you look at where the Chiefs have struggled. It's against tight ends. Okay, well, who's one of his favorite receivers? George Kittle. So for me, I like the over on that completion percentage because, granted, it's a high number, but it's a number that he's hit consistently all season long. His season average is 4% higher than what this is set at. And if he's not throwing that much, but he does complete, 6 of 8 or whatever he did like last week, he's hitting the over on this one. So minus 14, 114 on the over for this one. The under is 109. 64.5.
So I'm looking at games where they were playing from behind or kind of had to throw the ball, and those are generally more pass attempts. But the Atlanta game, 64.7, just hit it. The New Orleans game, 74.3.
Yep.
Baltimore, they lost 71.4. Clobbered Arizona. When they lost to Seattle at home, he was 52.2 on his most pass attempts of the season, 46.
Yep.
So there is the risk here that if Kansas City does dominate the game and they have to really sling it around, you're attempting less probable passes, and you get closer to that 50% completion percentage. But yeah, I'm just scrolling through the rest of them here. It looks pretty good. It looks like he generally does this.
And that's the thing too, because I think the perception is that he's going to have to throw a bunch of passes to hit that. He really doesn't. We'll say he throws.
The volume doesn't matter here whatsoever.
Right, exactly.
At all.
So get the volume out of your head. We just care about what he does with the pass attempts that he takes. So those are the ones that I like there. I'm sticking a lot of the props with the quarterbacks. I think there's a lot of money to be made with those quarterback props here. The wide receivers, tight ends, running back ones, those can be total hit or miss because it really depends on how the game script's going to go for those in particular to hit. Whereas the quarterback ones, they're constantly in the play, they're constantly in the mix. I think that's where you can make some of your money on some of these player props.
There's so many props. I'm just scrolling through all of them. Like, we can talk running backs. I think Tevin Coleman's situation is interesting.
Let's do the running backs because for a 49ers team that uses a running back as much as it does, Damian Williams, 5 touchdowns over his last 3 games. Just a boatload of targets. Let's do the running backs a little bit here. Anything that sticks out to you right off the bat there?
So I don't think Tevin Coleman's healthy, but I hope he plays because I have in one place locked in Tevin Coleman under 9.5 rushing attempts.
Yep.
So I could see him being on the field and getting 4 or 5 carries, and just that being that. The other thing is, so I'm kind of hoping Tevin Coleman plays but is limited.
Sure.
The other thing here is that betting overs on Mostert are now seen as kind of a square play because he's coming off of a 200-yard, 4-touchdown game. with his most carries of the season. But if Coleman isn't going to be a part of the game plan, really, or a big piece of it, Matt Breed has kind of disappeared. Jeff Wilson's completely disappeared. The numbers aren't that crazy on him. It's 15.5 rushing attempts.
Yep.
The only way he gets away from that is if Kansas City gets out to a big lead, probably. And then, the Chiefs don't run the ball that much. Damian Williams is plus 225 to be the game's leading rusher. Mostert at minus 150. You got to lay some juice, but it's tough to imagine him not leading this game in rushing. And perspective or whatever you want to call it, Tevin Coleman's at plus 1,100, so he's not expected to factor in.
Right.
Even though he did just do it against Minnesota, it's really tough to imagine that he winds up being the featured guy with what looks to be a pretty serious injury.
But do you like Mostert to lead the game in rushing with the Chiefs winning? That's where I kind of get hung up there, and that's why I think Damian Williams could be interesting, because if the Chiefs get out to a quick 2-score lead, are they going to keep running the ball with Mostert?
Run defense, though. Like if they
decent.
If they get beat up, I think it's going to be through the air, and the Chiefs won't be afraid to throw on those 3rd and 4s or whatever. So I'm only looking at Mostert minus 150 here, and it's a square play, as I'll admit, but I think it's the right spot to be focused.
So here's where I think the interesting is. If you like Mostert to lead the game in rushing, would you rather lay it on the juice there, or would you rather take this here, a 49ers player to rush for over 100 yards? Yes, is plus 155. If he's going to lead the game in rushing, I would think he'd come close to this number. So would you rather take him to lead with the chance that he has to go against everybody else, or would you rather take the plus money to go over 100 yards at plus 155? That feels like the more enticing play. Maybe not the safest play, but Brady's not going to really be in the mix. Coleman's probably not going to be in the mix too much either, especially with his questionable status. So if it's just Mostert, plus 155 to take over 100 rushing yards, that feels like a play to make.
All right, let's go nuts here. Here are the 5 bets that I would sprinkle on Mostert.
Okay, here we go.
You decide how you want to portion them.
Okay, let me write this down.
Mostert to lead the game in rushing, minus 150.
Okay.
Mostert over 15.5 rushing attempts.
Okay.
Mostert over 77.5 rushing yards. Your bet for someone to go over 100 yards at plus 155.
On the 49ers.
On the 49ers, sorry, yes. And then the plus 900 MVP.
Yep.
Those are the 5 that I would consider. And you can take which 1, 2, all that you want and decide how much you want to put on them.
So I'd like the over on his individual rushing prop. Because you look at the Chiefs, too. They allow
attempts or yards?
The yards, which is 74.5.
77.5.
77.5. The Chiefs overall as a run defense allow them an average of 104 rushing yards per game. They've been one of the worst in the league. Even if the 49ers are playing from behind, he's still going to be involved there because that is where you beat the Chiefs. You're going to have a tough time beating them through the air. You will not have a tough time to beat them on the ground. So I still think that you can hit that there. I still really like this one here, the plus 155 over 100 rushing yards. I feel like you're getting immense value on this one. When I first saw this before seeing the odds, I was not expecting the odds to be shifted as they are. I actually thought this would be reversed.
Well,
maybe not the minus 200.
With Mostert, obviously he's going to be the high man in the game in terms of where his prop is set. So with Mostert at 77.5, it adds up. It has to be plus money for the yes, otherwise. That just
I guess I was surprised how heavily weighted they were on the side.
You could see it more like, so it's minus 106 for over 77.5 yards, so you could see it maybe at plus 120, so plus 155 feels like good value.
And for reference, on the Chiefs side, if you wanted to take a Chiefs player over 100 rushing yards, yes is plus 270. The no is minus 375. I wouldn't want to lay money on a 375 money line, but that's kind of where I would go here. Damian Williams does not consistently rush for over 100 rushing yards. No. They don't need him to run for over 100 rushing yards. Even if they're nursing a big lead, I still don't see him going over that total.
I agree. I'm with you on that one. I'm looking at receiving props now. So this is the Kyle Juszczyk is on the receiving props. That's the 49ers fullback.
We know.
12.5 yards. The over's plus 114. The under's minus 141.
What are you trying to say?
I'm trying to figure out if the fullback's going to get over 13 or more yards. And you look at his game log, and he hasn't
7.
He hasn't seen a target. No,
Right.
no, that's rushing. That's rushing. We're looking at receiving.
Oh, okay.
So he hasn't seen a target in the postseason. Last 2 games of the regular season, though, he caught a 49-yard pass, a 23-yard pass. He had 2 catches for 6 yards in there, 3 catches for 22 yards. Then he goes targetless for another couple games. Then 7 receptions for 63 yards against Arizona.
Why did that happen?
I don't know, but why is he so randomly heavily featured in the passing game and then he breaks out in the passing game and then disappears for 2 weeks at a time with just goose eggs across the board? But this is the Super Bowl. I feel like maybe they make one play for him where he gets those 20 yards, or they don't.
Okay, the 7 catches, George Kittle was out. That's what I was thinking.
That's good to know.
Okay.
That's a good thing to look up there.
That's what I was just checking. All right, so what's the line on him?
Under 12.5 is minus 141.
And you want to take that?
I think so.
See, this is where you start losing your money.
Just think about it. Is the fullback going to be a featured part of the receiving game here? He was with Kittle out, like you said, and then he catches a random screen pass for a bunch of yards. He hasn't been targeted in the playoffs, though. Maybe he gets a target in the Super Bowl to try and mix things up. Is he going to break it for a first down on that screenplay?
See, this is the difference between you and I. You want to rush the under on Derrick Henry rushing yards. You want to,
and I hit it at plus 140.
One time.
I only bet it one time.
Because why would you normally? So why would you take the under on this? I minus 140.
Because maybe I'm 1 for 1 on Derrick Henry unders in the playoffs. Maybe I can be 1 for 1 on fullback receiving prop unders in the playoffs.
How much of a unit would you put on that?
So it's minus 140. So I would probably do 0.7 units to win half a unit. So if you're a $100 bettor, you go $70 to win 50.
$70 on that.
I'm speaking for the $100 bettor.
I know.
Nobody knows what my unit is. It could be $10,000.
I don't think we want to know. I don't think we
don't.
want to know what your unit is.
Probably not.
I just can't sit there, watch the Super Bowl, and sweat that Kyle Juszczyk or whatever the hell his name is.
I'm not going to sweat it. Sweat it and forget it. I'm not even going to think about it. And then at the end of the game, I'll be like, oh, wow.
Right.
You know what? I won't think about it unless he gets a touch. Once he gets a target in the receiving game, I'll be like, oh, yeah. And then see how many yards he gets. If I forget about it, that's a good thing because then it goes to the fourth quarter and I'm like, oh, yeah, he didn't get the ball. So
I will say, though, the scary part is his yards per reception is phenomenal.
Yeah, because I don't know.
Averaging 12 per reception. 20 receptions.
Now that we've had this debate, I'm going to make this bet.
Oh, my God. Averages 17.1 yards per game.
Steve and I will be making the trek to the beautiful state of New Hampshire this weekend.
Live free or die.
Live free or die. We're going to bet free or die.
That's right.
Get some Super Bowl props in on DK Sportsbook. So now that we've had this discussion, I'm going to literally put my phone in front of Steve's face and make this bet and show it to him.
And let's make that perfectly clear. If you're in the vicinity of New Hampshire, you do not have to be a resident of New Hampshire to place a bet.
Yeah.
You just have to be in state boundary lines to place that bet, and then you can go home.
Couple of Massachusetts residents right here.
Right. So Julian and I will travel to New Hampshire, place our bets, and go home. Because there's not much in New Hampshire else I want to do. I don't know what else. I think they have a no, not Texas Roadhouse. What's the other one? What? I'm trying to think. It's a barbecue place.
I don't know.
Lane Mall.
They have a good bar in Nashua that I like that I think has good bar food, and they do little beer flights. So we'll probably go there, get one of those, unless we wind up at the casino there. And
it's not really a casino, though.
I haven't been. I wouldn't know. I picture it like a big barn, and you walk in, and there's a couple of tables, but.
And it's not all charity. I don't have time for that. I give to charity. I give to charity when I'm walking to work and the guy asks for $1 and I give him my $1. That's my charity work.
It's very kind of you, Bucks. So there are also player props on defenses and kickers. I haven't looked at them yet, so I'm looking at them now.
There's nothing, please. Unless you want to do total tackles, which I think is something that you can bet on, but I mean, play to record for a sack, get away from me. Play to record for a sack of the Niners, whatever, the Chiefs, blah, blah. Make an interception. I mean, come on.
Yeah, these are tough. I don't think I'm going to be on any.
Unless you want to take kicking points.
Right.
That's something
so
you
I
could
like
take.
these teams both do have solid kickers.
So kind of like Showdown, if there's one you want to take the one that the team you think is going to win. So in my case, it would be Butker.
Right.
Which is at 7.5. Both teams at 7.5, minus 137 for the over, plus 110 for the under. Because there's a lot of points in this game.
I don't know if this is up on DK Sportsbook yet. I think they most likely will. But you can bet on the opening kickoff being a touchback. I think it's like minus 160, minus 170. I think the 49ers are more likely to start with the ball in this game, which means Butker kicking off, and Butker is a machine with the touchbacks, and you would win it. Robbie Gould, old man, doesn't get it every time. That's where you risk it.
I just couldn't imagine betting on that. That just sounds awful.
Well, these are welcome to my life, Bucks. These are the things that I imagine.
That just sounds awful.
It sounds great. You watch the kickoff and
or you can lose.
I want action. I'm gonna. This bet is going to be settled when they go. And here we go and kick it off. This bet's going to be settled in 3 seconds.
So take the coin toss even earlier.
No, because I have analysis on the kickoff, whereas the coin toss is literally betting on flipping a coin.
But you want to take Kyle Juszczyk.
If I say there's a bet that it's like, oh, this is a coin toss, then I'm not going to play it. Well, I think there's an edge on Kyle Juszczyk. I think there's a reason the under on his receiving yards is minus 140.
Okay, so how about this one? They have a parlay. Result of the coin toss and game winner. All
No
plus money.
chance.
All plus money.
Obviously, it's plus money, and you're going to... So here's what you're going to do. You're probably going to pick the right winning team, but your action's not going to matter because you're going to get the coin toss wrong, and then you have nothing to cheer for.
For reference, heads and Kansas City Chiefs plus 255. Come on.
All right, so if you take that, it'll be tails, and the Chiefs will win. Then you'll be sitting there, oh, should have taken tails.
Can you imagine that? It's like the Chiefs do win, and I'm like, oh, I should have taken tails.
Or you could just go bet the Chiefs at minus 122, a perfectly fine number right there.
That is a very fine. But the plus money, you know me. Sucker. I love those parlays.
Sucker for parlays. Can't figure out anything to parlay Chiefs money line with? Oh, all right, coin toss.
Should have taken tails.
Let's just
any
add
other
a roulette
bets
spin
you want
to the
to
mix.
talk about? We want to move to the DFS side.
We kind of did MVP last week.
Yeah.
Let's see. Game props. Player prop touchdowns, like Mostert's minus 155 to score. Kelsey's minus 125 to score. I think those are things to consider.
Yep.
Let's see. Team props. Fantasy points. Can always bet fantasy points,
Yep,
which
that's
is
an
something
interesting one too.
that I think people forget about, which is something unique to DK. Mahomes 22.5 feels like he should get that.
Yeah,
he's minus 125 for the over, even money for the under. Mostert is even money for over 15.5 fantasy points.
That feels low.
If he's going to get a touchdown, 2 catches, and 70 yards or something like that.
Yep.
What is that? 70 rushing yards and a touchdown. That's 13. 2 catches puts him at 15.
Yeah, he's right
15. So, if that's his floor-ish, I think that's interesting. I always think the fantasy points are interesting.
And the good thing is, if they follow you on Twitter at Julian Edlow, you'll have your full Super Bowl card
full
display.
It is quite the treat for everybody with a Twitter account.
It feels like it might need to be a thread instead of just one tweet.
I used the max characters on my first plays, so it's pinned to my profile page. You can find it very easily. So I'm going to have to respond to my own tweet with probably another one that fills up with characters with my next round of bets.
Wonderful.
And, that'll be there for people. Do you want to talk about any of the novelty props?
So I was taking a look. Nothing really came out. I mean, the coin toss is on there. That will actually end up being a one that'll come out. Oh, the jersey number props, because we were kind of talking about that.
Let's do that one. And then I have 2 more.
Okay, so they have jersey number of the first touchdown scorer, including overtime, and the jersey number of the last touchdown scorer. So it's basically set at 26.5. I asked you how they came up with that number. You actually had a very interesting answer. So why don't you give it here on the podcast?
I mean, they're going to take – it's going to be unique to the game. Like, not every Super Bowl is set at 26.5 because you have to look at – we have receivers these days that like to wear the teens.
Yep.
So Tyreek Hill is 10. Debo Samuel's whatever, 17, 18, 19, something like that. So those are each team's number one receiver, which would in some cases be an 80 or whatever. Now an under. So – and then the running backs are a huge – part of it as well because running backs get the most touches. Damian Williams and Tevin Coleman are both 26.
Right.
So with this being 26.5, that's I think a big piece of how they got to this number. But you got to like that Mostert's 31. Kelsey and Kittle are in the 80s.
Yep.
Here's another part of it. That I'm just realizing, any Kansas City receiver gets you the under. Watkins is 13.
Right.
14. Mecole Hardman is a low number.
Yep.
He could return a kick or get a play in there. So that there's some risk there.
Well, the danger there is with Kelsey, I think.
Kelsey and Kittle being
in the high 80s.
Over with Mostert and getting plus money, yet plus 115 on the over. I kind of like taking the over and saying Mostert, Kittle, or Kelsey will get that first score. But
because Mostert's the guy in the red zone when it comes to rushing the ball. You know, obviously Kittle is a presence here, but then Kelsey has a 30% red zone target share, which is the highest on the team. So if they're in the red zone, they're not running in with Damian Williams. It's basically going to Travis Kelce because you look at someone like Tyreek Hill.
Except for last week when Tyreek Hill got or 2 weeks ago when Tyreek Hill got all the touchdowns and ruined some of my props.
Which he does, but he doesn't have a high red zone. I
know what you mean. He gets
share.
the deep balls.
He gets them out of the red zone, right. So if they're in the red zone, it's basically Williams and Kelsey is what it comes down to. So that's a tough one because, like you said, Damian Williams right at that number there, that they're at the 26.5. So I would lean towards the over. I think you're covering your bases.
Being plus money and getting what I think are like the three biggest red zone weapons in the game.
Right.
That's where I would lean. We'll see if that winds up being a play or not. But
do your last two. And then we'll wrap this up.
Really quickly, trick play specials. There's some interesting plus money ones here. Basically, any quarterback to throw a forward pass after a lateral. That just means a flea flicker.
Yep.
Will there be one flea flicker in the game? Plus 250.
Not bad.
Not bad. We see this
fairly often.
Fairly often, yes.
The Chiefs did that too with Sammy Watkins, I think it was.
I don't even remember.
But they did.
Watkins' touchdown that he caught, you mean, came from Damian Williams on a flea flicker?
I think that's what it was, yeah.
Okay, I don't know. Either way, it's not that
the
uncommon of a play.
The Chiefs have done it.
It feels like we see one in like a team runs this in the Super Bowl. Players to attempt a pass. We have the two quarterbacks, so obviously the number's set at 2.5.
Yep.
Will anybody else in the game throw a pass? Plus 124.
Not bad.
Not bad for a trick play for anybody else throwing the ball. Or, nobody really speaks this, what if a quarterback gets hurt? What if somebody just goes down and it's one of those things where you have to miss a play?
Yep.
And whoever these bozo backups are come in and run one handoff. Handoff wouldn't do it, but come in and have to run a few plays. That would stink if a quarterback got hurt and they miss one play and they run a handoff and then they go right back, and that would stink. But not bad. And if you want to bet that pass to be completed, plus 200. If you want to bet that pass to be a touchdown, plus 1,200.
Wow. That's a little too much.
At the same time, this is total players to throw a touchdown pass, so we need to make sure Jimmy G and Mahomes do each get a touchdown pass.
Which is not a guarantee.
Right.
5 straight games for Jimmy Garoppolo. He's thrown 1 touchdown or less.
So you need to get that touchdown from both starting quarterbacks and the other player. Sorry. Gatorade color. Andy Reid has had a red Gatorade bottle at all of his press conferences. Red is a heavy favorite at plus 150. Red is also a color that is in both teams' team colors.
Where is this?
Novelty props. Color of Gatorade shower.
Okay.
It does feel rough getting just plus 150 out of all the colors it could be. But I would lean red.
I don't know why, but the last Super Bowl, one of the colors was heavily favored, and it ended up being one of the like absolute underdogs. Like I think yellow was the favorite. It ended up being clear.
Yeah, clear is always a good one. I think that what is that plus 450 or something.
Clear
is always a good consideration.
Water.
Right.
If you didn't know that already. Thank you for being my friend.
If I was going to say, if Bobby Boucher is waterboying for either of these teams, we lock in what color it's going to be.
So are you making a play on the Gatorade here?
I was just mentioning it.
What's your lean?
I said my lean is red. There's been red. Andy Reid has been doing his press conferences next to a red Gatorade bottle every day. All right. I think they're telling us something.
Okay, so we just did about 35 minutes worth of Super Bowl props. Anything else you want to add on to that?
Nope.
Okay. I just want to quickly shift over to baseball a little bit here. So it came out this morning that Chris Bryant had lost his grievance against the Cubs. Basically what he was upset about is that he felt that they intentionally left him in the minors later than they needed to back in 2015, which was his rookie season.
Which they did. But they did that to get to this.
Right. So in doing so, the Cubs were able to obtain an extra year of team control for Bryant here. So instead of becoming a free agent now in 2020, he will now become a free agent in 2021. Why do we care about this? Who gives a crap? Well, the interesting thing here is that Bryant is subject of trade rumors. And now, for any teams that are interested in his services, they now know for sure that Bryant is going to be under team control for up until 2021. So this makes him a lot more enticing trade target now for a Cubs team that really could be on the cusp of going under a rebuild. And that whole division is going to be interesting because, the Cubs might not really be as competitive as they've been in the past here. So it just really brings up an interesting scenario to keep an eye on because the third base position, I would say overall, is pretty weak. We have some teams that still are in need of a third baseman. Now you have someone like Chris Bryant who could be on the trade block. He's still young. He's only 28 years old, coming off a year where he had 31 home runs, 77 RBIs. But that's something to keep an eye on now that they know the actual service time that he's going to be serving. Yeah,
it's a big deal for what the Cubs will get in return and what teams will be willing to give up for him. I just think overall it's been a decently interesting baseball offseason.
Yeah.
In terms of player movement, and it's still all been overshadowed by the Astros and the Red Sox and the Mets and the trickle-down effect and all of that. But decent little offseason for player movement in baseball, still with more to go because always the biggest moves happen right before the season starts, which is ridiculous. But
so the potential of Chris Bryant and Nolan Arenado and Mookie Betts moving before the season begins is definitely going to be something to watch.
And it's that the Rockies make sense. They're like, we got to move this guy. The Cubs and Red Sox moving franchise guys is like, eesh.
Any feels on this Mookie Betts thing? Did you hear about the contract that he rejected?
Yeah.
10 years, $300 million. Not good enough.
That's a smart turn down by him.
But the money he wants seems a little...
That's fine though, but then you just settle on something better than 10 for 300.
Sure. I just think that the Padres are going to end up landing him. I think it's a move that both sides should make sense on both sides.
That's going to be a heck of a. Machado and Mookie. That's going to be a tough.
Tatis.
Yeah, those are tough outs. I'm just speaking strictly on the contracts. Like you are sunken into those two guys, and you still have to get yourself some pitchers. So.
They got a lot of young guys in that couple of years. That's going to be a very competitive team.
I agree.
Good reminder, odds and lines are subject to change. See website for actual odds. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER. That is going to do it for the Panel B podcast.